I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. We are live, which means you could join me in the chat room by going to israelnewstalkradio.com and clicking on that big button that says live chat. You could join me in the chat room. And of course, because this is a live show, you could call in. The numbers to call in North America 301 768 4841. In Israel, the number is 0265000151. Those numbers, of course, could be found on the top of the page on israelnewstalkradio.com. I'm going to do something this show that I don't normally do. And the reason I'm going to do it is because I was challenged last year. And I like being challenged. And I got back on. I did a second show after I did the original topic. And I defended myself, and then I looked further into the story that I told, and found that the guy who challenged me was partially right. So, in order to rectify the wrong that I did last year around this time of year, I'm going to do the story about Jews and Chinese food on Christmas. So we're going to do that story over again this year. And I'm going to be a little more accurate, okay? I was very accurate last year. I'm always accurate. But because I was challenged and the guy said, the story you told didn't seem right, we're going to relook at that story this year, right now, on this show. We're going to relook at the story about Jews and why Jews eat Chinese food at Christmas time. So that's one of the things I want to look at this show. Another thing is I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I never have been. But aliens, we got to look at aliens. Do aliens exist? This is the second thing I want to look at. Do aliens exist? And of course, we have to talk about the vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines, but that kind of fits in with the alien topic. So we're going to look at all that and a whole lot more right here on Political Hitman. Feel free to join me in the chat room at israelnewstalkradio.com. You could call in, be part of the program. The program is live. The number is to call in North America, 301 768 4841. In Israel, the number is 0265 00151. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. You could join me in the chat room by going to israelnewstalkradio.com and clicking on the button that says chat room. I'll be in the chat room the entire show.
Had a dad here pretending to be a horse.
You could also call in. The show is live. Number to call 301-768-4841. That's 301-768-4841 in North America. In Israel, the number is 026500-151. And you could join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. All right, so we want to talk about aliens, and that little noise there probably was aliens trying to stop us from talking about them. There is a growing consensus in the intelligence community that aliens exist. About 40 years ago, there was a cult that was created in Canada called the Realians. Now, the Realians believed, and this was their belief. They still, people part of that cult today still believe the same thing, that there's an alien mothership hovering over Earth, and that the aliens in the mothership are using Earth as a test tube to fix the problems from their mother country. And the Jews, of course, are the control, and everybody else is the I guess, guinea pigs. And this is the theory. This is this theory that allowed them to continue, and this was the theory that they put forward, saying that the world is run by aliens. And everyone laughed at them. Everyone thought it was ridiculous. About 3 months ago, Fox News reported that the U.S. military, the Navy in particular, has released documents proving that they've been tracking for about 40 years now. So we're talking 40 years, the same amount of time that the aliens were around. So 40 years ago, 40 years, that they were talking about they were tracking unidentified flying objects, and thus maybe the existence of alien spaceships. So this was about a month or 2 months ago that Fox News came up with the story. Nobody really touched it because everyone said it was so far-fetched and so crazy that nobody would touch it, nobody believed it, and they thought it was nuts. And so I'm thinking that, I was watching this and I was thinking, okay, maybe it is a little nuts. But then a few months ago, was it a year ago, 2 years ago? President Trump invented the Space Force, and everyone thought he was nuts. And they said, you're crazy, the Space Force. Now, a former chief of the Israeli Defense Ministry's Space Directorate said that humans have been in contact with extraterrestrials from a galactic federation, and that President Trump is aware of this and was previously on the verge of revealing extraterrestrials' existence. Chaim Eshed made the revelation in an interview published in Yediot Achronot newspaper on Friday in Hebrew, parts of which were published in English by the Jerusalem Post on Tuesday. The unidentified flying objects have asked not to publish that they are here. Humanity is not ready yet, the 87-year-old former space security chief said, referring to the group of extraterrestrials as a galactic federation. Eshed added in the interview that the aliens sought to research the fabric of the universe and that a cooperation agreement has been signed with humans, which includes a secret underground base on Mars where there are American astronauts and alien representatives, according to the Jerusalem Post. There is an agreement between the U.S. government and the aliens. They signed a contract with us to do experiments here, Eshed said. Eshed, who led Israel's space program for 30 years and is a 3-time recipient of the Israel Security Award, said Trump had previously been on the verge of revealing information on the extraterrestrial group, but was asked not to do so in order to prevent mass hysteria. They, the Galactic Federation, have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand, in general, what space and spaceships are, Eshed said. If I had come up with what I'm saying today 5 years ago, I would have been hospitalized, he told Yediot Achronot. Today, they are already talking differently. I have nothing to lose. I've received my degrees and awards, and I am respected in universities abroad, he said. When contacted by various media sources, that the Department of Defense said that the questions should be directed to the White House, and the White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Now, during a May ceremony unveiling the official flag of the newest military branch, the Space Force, Trump argued that space is going to be the future, both in terms of defense and offense, and so many other things. Here's the quote. And already, from what I'm hearing and based on reports, we're now the leaders in space, he said at the time. Since reports began circulating on Eschat's claims, several Twitter accounts have been created jokingly claiming to be part of the Galactic Federation. One account, named Galactic Federation Official, wrote in a tweet on Monday evening, quote, "The Galactic Federation has been watching your species for a long while. We cannot admit the human species, but due to the circumstances of our reveal by Chaim Eshed, we have agreed to admit specific individuals of higher moral caliber." So, here we are. Do we believe Chaim Eshed? Do we believe that there are aliens out there, and there are spaceships, and we are not the only people in the galactic world? Do we believe that there's a galactic federation? So if we're talking about a galactic federation, now we'll kind of use Star Trek terms, since this is all kind of leaning towards the TV show Star Trek. If we're going to use the term galactic federation, does that mean there's more than one species of galactic people, more than one species of aliens that are out there? Does that mean that we are that we are talking about worlds, different worlds of aliens? And if that is so, why has the government kept it secret from us? Now, I am not going to argue one way or the other because I do not know. This is something that's an unknown to me. I have no idea if aliens exist, if aliens don't exist. How am I supposed to know? I have no idea. But at the same time, I am leaning towards saying, yeah, okay, perhaps aliens do exist. And here's why. I'll tell you why. It would explain COVID to me. It would explain COVID. It would explain the reaction to COVID, the politicians' reactions to COVID. Some of these politicians, if there are aliens out there and aliens are watching us and experimenting on Earth, and Earth is just a big test tube for an alien experiment, then COVID could be explained away easily. And the reaction of the politicians, the crazy, unequal, uneven, unfair reaction of the politicians would make 100% sense, right? So if the politicians were aliens trying to conduct an experiment, and the population were the test subjects that were being experimented on, then we could understand completely that these lockdowns, we could understand completely closing the schools, we could understand completely the crazy idea that you could leave supermarkets open, but you have to close synagogues, that you could leave your big box stores open, but you have to close churches. All this makes sense if this is an alien experiment and they're trying to figure out what works best for an alien species using humans as guinea pigs. Then that makes perfect sense to me. It actually explains things I didn't understand before. It clears things up completely. But then again, I would think that if I made this argument seriously, if I was really serious about making this argument, which I am only half serious about making at the moment, but if I was really serious about making this argument, that would put me into the crackpot category, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that make me a little crazy? Don't you think? I mean, if you're a rationally thinking person, would you not think that argument would be a little out there? I would if I didn't see that this intelligence head said that, look, we've had contact with aliens and we're kind of hiding it from the humans, and if I didn't hear Trump create a space force, if I didn't know that Trump created a space force, and if I didn't know that the U.S. military has released documentation and videos of unidentified flying objects that they don't know what they are, then I would say, okay, maybe this is not such a crackpot theory. Now that I have this information in my hands, maybe this is not such a crackpot theory. Maybe, just maybe, we are living in an age that we are going to see extraterrestrials. I'm half hoping that it happens, only because I think it would be interesting. It would really take away the boredom of the world, and I think that if they were hostile aliens, it wouldn't be as interesting as if they were peaceful aliens, or maybe it would be more interesting. I don't know. Maybe that's why we need a space force. This is such a crazy topic. And I have no idea whether to believe it or not. So, what do you think? Give me a call. 301 768 4841 in North America, and Israel 02-6500151. Do you think aliens exist? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. Because I'm kind of torn on the topic. I'm kind of torn on the subject. I'm not sure where to go with this. The military, we're trained. We are trained as citizens of the world to respect our military, to respect our governments. And if our government is telling us that this exists, or military officials are telling us that this exists, do we believe them? Or are they all just crackpots? Because that could happen too. They could all just be crazy. I'm not sure, and I want to hear what you have to say. I want to know what you think. I'm kind of confused by this. It would also explain some religions. It would explain religion. It would explain the differences in religions. It would explain the concept of God for those people who don't believe in God. The existence of aliens would explain a lot of what's going. A lot of the questions we have about Earth. So is this just a convenient way to explain away some of the things that we don't understand? I'm under the impression, I'm under the opinion that we don't have to understand everything. That humans, it's not natural and it's not right for humans to understand everything. But that's just my humble opinion. Give me a call. Numbers on the top of the page on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. Feel free to get in on the conversation. Give me a call. In North America, 301 768 4841. In Israel, 02-650-0151. You could join me in the chat room at israelnewstalkradio.com. So, an Israeli military expert, space expert, has come out and said that aliens do exist and that there is a secret bunker underground in Mars, which has alien and human, American human astronauts. Now, it's hard to believe that this is true, because we haven't heard of any humans reaching Mars, but this is the claim, and the claim is sort of backed up by the U.S. military, who has admitted that they have been tracking unidentified flying objects for at least 40 years, and so one has to wonder how true or untrue the story is. Now, there was in 1995, Fox Television aired An Alien Autopsy. It was a 17-minute black and white film supposedly depicting a secret medical examination or autopsy of an alien by the United States military. It was released in 1995 by London-based entrepreneur Ray Santilli. He presented it as an authentic autopsy on the body of an alien removed from the 1947 crash of a flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico. The film footage was allegedly supplied to him by a retired military cameraman who wished to remain anonymous. Now, in 2006, Santilli admitted that the film was not authentic, but rather a staged reconstruction of the footage he claimed to have viewed in 1992, but which had deteriorated and become unusable by the time he made the film. He claimed that a few frames from the original were embedded in his film, but he never specified which ones. The existence of an original film strip of the alleged autopsy has never been independently verified. Now, Fox Television broadcast the footage hosted by Jonathan Frakes, who, by the way, played a military captain or assistant captain in Star Trek. He was part of the Federation in Star Trek and The Next Generation. And it was aired in the United States on August 28, 1995, under the title Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction. The program caused a sensation, with Time magazine declaring that the film had sparked a debate with intensity not lavished on any home movie since the Zapruder film. Fox rebroadcast the program twice, each time to higher ratings, with the November 1995 broadcast winning its time slot again with 11.7 million viewers and a 14% share. Although in the broadcast version, some parts of the autopsy were pixelized or edited out because of their graphic nature of earlier versions. Santilli claimed the complete and unedited film, in addition to the previously unreleased footage of the wreckage, which was presented as the remains of the alien aircraft reported to have crashed in Roswell. Now, Fox program features numerous well-known figures, both in front and behind the camera, interviews with experts on the authenticity of the film, including Oscar-winning special effects makeup artist Stan Wilson, who considered the autopsy procedures in the film to be authentic, but stopped short of declaring being an alien. So in 2006, the events surrounding the release of the footage were adapted as a British feature comedy called Alien Autopsy, and Santilli then, right after being mocked in that British film, admitted that they recreated footage of the alien autopsy that he had viewed in 1992. Everyone made fun of Fox for airing this. Everyone said, this is insane. This is crazy. What are you doing? You want to be taken seriously? How could you air footage like this? How could you air shows like this? And yet 11.7 million people watched it. So there are many, many, many people who, if they don't believe aliens exist, at least are open to the possibility that aliens do, in fact, exist in the world. And as silly as I feel talking about this topic, and I really do feel silly talking about this topic, I think it's something that we should look at, something we should explore, and something we should investigate for future shows, because I don't think that we could dismiss it outright. If so many people, now military people, are releasing information claiming that aliens are real and that there is verifiable proof that aliens are real, by the way, nobody has submitted any verifiable proof. There's nothing that's been presented to the public to say that, hey, yes, it is true. Here is evidence that aliens exist. It is just the word of an Israeli former military guy, an 87-year-old man, who may be losing his mind. Who knows? And the fact that the president decided to set up a space force, and a couple of grainy pictures taken by Air Force pilots as they flew missions and didn't recognize things in the air. But there's no verifiable proof that any of this is alien. There's no verifiable proof that any of this comes from beings from outer space. And there is absolutely no verifiable proof at all that there is a bunker on Mars that houses alien and American astronauts working together to solve, doing some kind of experiments together. There is no verifiable proof of that at all. Nor is there any verifiable proof that the Earth is a big test tube for alien experiments. There's no verifiable proof of that either. So, since nothing has been verified, And we have no idea if this is true or not. And the White House is refusing to comment on this. At the moment, I have to say that I'm extremely skeptical that any of this is authentic. At the moment, I have to say I am extremely, extremely skeptical that these people are sane, that any of these people are sane, and especially this 87-year-old former Israeli military man. Um, I think he shot his credibility in this case, unless he could produce credible evidence. Now, if credible evidence is produced, then we really have to take a look at it seriously and consider what the ramifications are of this. Because if aliens do exist, are they peaceful? I know we signed a peace agreement with them, according to him, and we signed an agreement that they won't kill us, they won't attack us, they just want to study us. But are they peaceful? Do they have technology that could kill us? Do they have technology that's far more advanced than our technology? And is there anything that we can adapt from their technology into our technology to make our lives a little easier? Do they have diseases like we have? We're in the middle of an epidemic, the COVID-19 epidemic. Is there a way? Do they have ways to cure these kind of things? Could we save humanity? Do they age like we age? And if they don't, is there something in their DNA? Is there something in their in their blood, or something in their technology that could stop us from aging and perhaps prevent us from dying? Is there a way that they've achieved peace amongst their species? I suppose if they're a galactic federation, they've made peace among all the galaxy, and they've made peace among all the different life forms in the galaxy. So how did they achieve that? And is there a way to achieve that on Earth? There are so many questions that we could be asking these aliens had we known they existed and had there been any verifiable proof that they do. And who is their leader? What do they look like? I could think of a million questions that I have regarding whether these aliens exist or not. And if I'm assuming that they do exist and that the military and that these people are not lying to us, and that there is a reason that Trump set up a space force, then I have to assume that that because the American government set up a space force, that some of these aliens, perhaps people who are not part of the Galactic Federation, are hostile towards Earth, and have ill will towards Earthlings and Earth. And if that is the case, how are we being protected? These are, I mean, I guess this is questions we have to ask our government. I know they set up a space force, but what is the space force doing? Are they setting up spaceships that are going to patrol our airspace to save us from invading aliens? I'm not sure if this is what we should be spending our tax money on. But then again, well, if the Americans have a space force, why have no other countries set up a space force? If the Americans know that aliens exist, do they only land in America? Is it possible that aliens came to Earth and only landed in the United States of America? The Earth is a very big place. There's a lot of different countries, a lot of different areas of Earth, a lot of places that are much nicer than America to land. Is it possible that spaceships only landed in America? Why do they only have a deal with the Americans? The Israelis seem to know about it because this guy in Israel said that he knew about it. But why would they only have a deal for a study of the world and only have American scientists? What about the Russians? What about the Chinese? What about the Israelis? Why are there no Israeli scientists or astronauts in the underground bunker on Mars with the aliens? Why is it only Americans? So many questions, so few answers. I'm lost in questions. I could keep going. I'm really lost in questions because there are no answers. And for good reason, because this is probably not even real. So that's probably the reason that there are a lot of questions and no real answers. But then again, if it is real, I would not feel as silly as I do talking about this topic now. If it is real, then it's something we should take seriously and something we should look at and something we should demand answers from our governments. Because if our lives are at danger, or the lives of our children or grandchildren are at danger, then perhaps we should know how the government and how our countries are going to defend us against attacks from the sky. This is something that we should take seriously, and we should really ask our politicians. Unless, of course, since the people of the Galactic Federation have asked to remain secret. Maybe the politicians don't even know. Maybe it's only certain politicians that know. Maybe, just maybe, there's a certain substance that they have to take in order to see these aliens. Maybe, just maybe, there's a certain way they have to approach this. I don't know. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. Coming up, we'll talk about Chinese food and the Jews and Christmas. I want to talk about this again because I got it wrong last time, according to a listener. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. Join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, where the conversation is always fun and always happening. You can also call in North America. The number to call is 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 02-6500151. So last year, a full year ago, I did a show at the beginning of December where we talked about Jews eating Chinese food on Christmas. And I said this was a symbol of assimilation, and because it was a symbol of assimilation, Jews should not eat Chinese on Christmas Eve. This is a habit of the mostly New York Jews, but it's kind of spread around the entire Jewish community. And I felt at the time, I stated at the time that this should not happen. I told the story at the time last year that the tradition started when young Jewish boys and girls in New York City they wanted to ease their parents into eating non-kosher food, and so on Christmas Eve they were able to bring them to a Chinese restaurant, and because everything is pretty much wrapped or covered in sauces, the parents didn't realize they were eating non-kosher, and I got attacked almost immediately after the show. The people started sending me emails, one email after another, that first of all, it's ridiculous to say that food causes assimilation. I've made that claim a couple of times over the course of the years here on Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio, and I will continue to say that food is a contributor to assimilation. It does help ease people into assimilating into societies, and so I will continue to make that claim, even though people disagree with me, and that's fine. We're all entitled to our opinion. I went and I dug a little deeper into this whole story about Chinese food on Christmas Eve, and I realized that the guy who sent me the emails and the woman who sent me the emails and all the people who sent me all those emails were potentially partially correct. Now, I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. I've done it a lot of times. I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong on the radio. And I may have been partially wrong in that story, so let's set the record straight on this show. And let's talk about Chinese food, Jewish American Chinese restaurant patronage. So it became prominent in the 20th century, especially among Jewish New Yorkers. It's received attention as a paradoxical form of assimilation by embracing an unfamiliar cuisine that eased the consumption of non-kosher food. Now, a common stereotype the relationship Jewish people have with Chinese restaurants during Christmas is very well documented. The definitive scholarly and popular treatment of the subject appears in a book called A Kosher Christmas, 'Tis the Season to be Jewish, by Rabbi Joshua Eli Plout. He's a PhD. And in the third chapter, which is entitled We Eat Chinese Food on Christmas. The origin of Jews eating Chinese food dates to the end of the 19th century on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Because Jews and the Chinese lived in proximity to each other, there were around 1 million East European Jews living in New York around 1910, and the Jews constituted over 1/4 of the city's population. The majority of the Chinese immigrated to the Lower East Side from California after the 1880s, and many of them went into the restaurant business. Now, the first mention of the Jewish population eating Chinese food was in 1899 in the American Hebrew Weekly Journal. They criticized Jews for eating at a non-kosher restaurant, particularly singling out Chinese food. Jews continued to eat at these establishments. In 1936, it was reported that there were 18 Chinese restaurants opened in heavily populated Jewish areas in the Lower East Side. Jews felt more comfortable at these restaurants than they did at the Italian or German eateries that were prevalent during this time period. Joshua Plout wrote of the original Jews eating Chinese food on Christmas, quote, "It dates at least as early as 1935 when the New York Times reported a certain restaurant owner named Eng Shi Chuk, who brought chow mein on Christmas Day to the Jewish children's home in Newark. Over the years, Jewish families and friends gathered on Christmas Eve and on Christmas Day at Chinese restaurants across the United States to socialize and to banter, to reinforce social and familiar bonds, and to engage in favorite activities for Jews during Christmas holiday. The Chinese restaurants had become a place where Jewish identity was made, remade, and announced. Now, in Lower Manhattan, immigrant Jews would open delis for other Jews. Italians ran Italian restaurants primarily for other Italians, and Germans had many places that would serve only Germans. But Chinese restaurant owners accepted Jews and other immigrants and ethnic groups as customers without precondition. Most of the Jews and Italians would want to eat Chinese restaurants than they would eat at their own ethnic establishments. So they didn't like going to Jewish restaurants. They wanted to eat at Chinese restaurants. And the Chinese restaurateurs' lack of anti-Jewism gave Jews a sense of security. And they were also drawn to the restaurant's exoticism. Of all the peoples whom immigrant Jews and their children met, Of all the foods they encountered in America, the Chinese were the most foreign and the most un-Jewish, said Plout. A large majority of the Jews saw eating in Chinese restaurants as an antidote for Jewish religionism. For the Chinese were the most foreign and the most un-Jewish. And they didn't want to be considered Jewish. They wanted to be more cosmopolitan. So Jews saw that eating in Chinese restaurants as more cosmopolitan. They had chopsticks. It was more exotic. They had unusual wallpaper. They had eccentric decorations. They had exotic food names. So the generation of Jews who grew up in New York after the initial East European Jews immigrated wanted to identify based on cosmopolitan ideals. Now, Chinese food allowed Jews to transition from strictly kosher to incorporating non-kosher foods into their diets. Chinese cuisine is usually well suited to Jewish taste because, unlike virtually any other cuisine available in America, traditional Chinese cooking rarely uses milk products. While most first-generation Jews living in America strictly practiced kosher at the time, many second-generation Jews remained strict in their homes but became more flexible in the foods they ate outside their homes. The nature of Chinese food allowed them to rationalize this decision, as it is disguised through the process of cutting, chopping, and mincing. Pork, shrimp, lobster, and all the other so-called dietary abominations are no longer viewed in their natural states, wrote Mr. Plout. The process of cutting, chopping, and mincing, referred to in Chinese as kopeng, to cut and cook, in ancient is made the ingredients invisible, and thus they're considered safe, non-kosher. For instance, pork was hidden and wrapped in wontons that look similar to Jewish kreplach. Those are dumplings. Ultimately, this gave way to many U.S.-born Jews rejecting kosher altogether as impractical. Breaking the rules of kosher by eating Chinese food allowed the younger generation to assert their independence and further establish a cosmopolitan spirit. Now, the Orthodox Jewish community saw that the trend was that Jews were going to, that some of the young Jews were going to assimilate by eating Chinese food, and they were going to go and eat non-kosher, and they were going to do this regardless of their traditional values. So many Orthodox Jewish communities in America have opened Chinese restaurants which are fully kosher and are under strict rabbinic supervision. And the reason they open Chinese restaurants and you don't have very many kosher Indian restaurants or very many kosher German restaurants or Polish restaurants or any other or Italian restaurants is because of this strange fascination that New York Jews had towards Chinese food. Now, the relationship that Jews have with Chinese food runs deeper than stereotypes. Eating Chinese food has become a meaningful symbol of American Judaism. For eating Chinese, the Jews found a modern means of expressing their traditional cultural values. The savoring of Chinese food is now a ritual celebration of immigration, education, family, community, and continuity. Chinese food is considered a staple in Jewish culture